Welcome to Truthzilla. I am Megan, sitting here with Scott and Ed. We have a very special guest today. Ryan Hartwig is a Facebook insider with Project Veritas, a graduate of Arizona State University with a bachelor's in Spanish linguistics. He is a former content moderator for a company called Cognizant out of Phoenix, Arizona, who contracts with Facebook to moderate content. After seeing the blatant discrimination and bias censorship that occurs there, Ryan has gone public as a whistleblower about these practices and has become a vocal advocate for freedom of speech. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's nice meeting you all, Megan and Scott, and yeah, it's great to be here with you.
So, Ryan, can you tell us a little bit, what is Cognizant exactly?
Yeah, so Cognizant is it's probably the biggest company you've never heard of. So they're like a Fortune 200 company. They are based out of New Jersey, but I think they have over like 150,000 employees worldwide. A lot of employees in India. They're kind of like a competitor to Cisco, and so like they do that kind of thing. So a lot of it's like IT infrastructure for healthcare, banking. So this project they took on in 2017, it was a 3-year contract with Facebook. And it was kind of out of their wheelhouse. It was kind of kind of a fringe project. They don't normally do this kind of thing. And they actually ended the contract early. I don't know. We're not sure why, but yeah, I worked for Cognizant. I got hired as a content moderator in 2018, March of 2018. I got hired as a bilingual content moderator. So it's an entry level job. It's not. I wasn't an engineer or anything, but it was an entry level job there. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. So kind of what's the culture like there? If you could sum it up.
Yeah. As you can see from the video, I mean, yeah, it's rough. I think it's funny is because I started on the Spanish side, so I was like one of two like gringos in the Spanish department. So the culture there was very different. So I transitioned. I was there in Spanish department for about a year and a half, and the last like 8 months or so, like last summer, I moved to the North American side. So during the entire time in Spanish, I saw all the posts and guidance from the North American side. But yeah, the culture was very, very different. So yeah, as you can see from the video, I mean, people were pretty open about their political views, like open about, calling out, talking about accepting accepting an $80 million bounty on Trump's head.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah. So do the people at Cognizant use Facebook?
Yeah. And what's really fascinating, I haven't mentioned this in too many interviews. So when I first started there, so I didn't have to link my personal Facebook account, but 3 months after I started, they essentially forced all of the content moderators to link their personal account at work. Isn't that weird?
Oh, interesting.
That's so creepy. Some people didn't have a Facebook account, like for good reason, and some people were like, yeah, I don't do it for like safety reasons or whatever. So they literally had to create like a fake, like just an account just for the day, just to be able to link it and be able to continue to work at Facebook. And the reason they gave us was, oh, we don't want you to accidentally like delete your friend's posts. Yeah, so it's kind of weird. I'm like, okay, what are the chances I'm going to delete someone else's posts? So it makes me wonder, okay, like, are they looking to see if the content moderators are conservative? And maybe moving forward, they can choose which people get promotions. I don't know. But it just gets kind of curious.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, it said that you were passed over for a promotion or a different assignment based on certain criteria, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the theory. Like I said in the interview, it's a possibility. I can't say for certain. But yeah, that goes into that whole thing about being straight white male and being attacked for that. White males are terrorists, and Don Lemon can say that.
Yeah, it's pretty frightening, man. So another question I had was, so you hear a lot about content moderators having obviously you probably see some of the most horrible things in the world, and then there's a lot of like PTSD. I've heard like the stories that I heard was, there's like PTSD for that. Are you just moderating everything, your group, or was it specifically like politically based stuff, or is it just kind of just a broad moderating, I guess?
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. I mean, there's different types of work that we did. So we just started the contract started in 2017 with a few people, and it grew to a lot of people. But we did a good job with at first we just had videos, like Facebook videos or Instagram videos, and then we expanded. So they're like, okay, you guys are doing a good job. So they gave us like static posts. They gave us like IGPR, which is Instagram profile review. They gave us there's a hate speech queue they gave us, brand safety. So we really expanded and like did a lot of different things for Facebook. Um, so yeah, we did a lot of different things. So on a daily basis, I mean, when I was in the Spanish queue, I got more like cartel beheadings and just like crazy stuff. So it's really kind of tough. And they had counselors on site 24/7. So and they had a phone line we could call. And when you first like interviewed there, they told you like straight up, hey, you're gonna see. They literally show you, bring you in with the laptop during the interview. Like they show you like intense pornographic imagery and like, hey, you're gonna see this on a daily basis. Are you okay with that? So it's not like they don't prepare you for it. But it's tough for anybody. So yeah, one second you could be looking at like some like random political meme, and then you click next. Once you ignore that job, and up on your screen could pop up like child porn or like a gruesome beheading in Mexico from a cartel. I didn't get too much child porn, which is nice. There might be maybe some
nice.
other yeah, that's that is something nobody wants to see. But as far as having counselors on site, we had plenty of counselors. There's another article that came out like in February of last year from TheVerge.com from Casey Newton, and someone else like went forward with a journalist about like the working conditions are horrible, like there's no counselors, and so that was kind of the attitude of that article. I didn't agree with some aspects of it because I'm like, look, the resources are there. If you're already effed up to begin with, like you shouldn't be there. You shouldn't have taken that job. So
sure,
definitely. So yeah, it sounds like it was kind of a series of events that kind of led up to ultimately what happened, and kind of led to you wanting to use a hidden camera. What was kind of the breaking point where you said I need to do something about this?
Yeah. So I'd accumulated I noticed a few things. I finally put it down on paper like around April or May of 2019. And I think it's one of the things that got to me, I think, was, the word nationalism. Like even in the media today, it's almost become like this curse word, like, oh, nationalist. And they're trying to make nationalism seem like racism, and it's not. Nationalism is not the same thing as racism. Yeah. So there was one post in like where basically there was a meeting at a library like in DC. Like there was like someone protest from a nationalist group, and it was clearly a nationalist group, not a racial group. And Facebook said, "Hey, delete this." So it kind of went against their policy. So that was one of just many examples. I saw some like interference in Mexican elections where they're giving favoritism to like the minor child of a candidate, and you see how they treated Barron Trump, and it's just. So yeah, numerous examples. So I wrote a letter to Congress in May of that year, 2019. Didn't really hear back. Then I started reaching out to a couple of news outlets. Finally got in touch with Project Veritas.
Perfect.
Sure.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. So what was that like? Like what is that process like?
Yeah, I mean, you send them like either a Telegram message or you can send them an email. I guess I got a plug, Project Veritas. You can send an email to veritastips@protonmail.com, right? You guys can include that in your.
Absolutely.
No, they're a great organization. They're great to work with. Very capable group of individuals. So there's undercover journalists who work for Project Veritas. Yeah, so you reach out to them and then they try to vet your story or whatever. So at first I sent them an email. I didn't really hear back, and then we finally caught up. I caught up with them again. So I started filming. Like the last couple of months of work is when I filmed the most, probably on a regular basis. But there's some things that you just kind of have to learn about how to use the camera. I can't go too much into the methods, but it's a scary experience. I mean, you get kind of paranoid. There's a really funny movie with like Matt Damon. I forget the name of it, where he he's like a whistleblower, basically. Let me see if I can find the name of it. Matt Damon in like Germany, Matt Damon whistleblower. And the other movie another movie reference maybe you can throw on the video is Demolition Man from the 90s with you think you know that movie, right? Where you get censored. Yeah, with Wesley Snipes and yeah.
This Stallone?
And Sylvester Stallone, where you get basically in the future, like every time you curse, you get fined automatically. So if you say a curse word, you automatically get fined. The Informant. Okay, so this is a 2009 movie with Matt Damon called The Informant, and he ends up like, just blowing the whistle at work. But that one's a little bit different because he ends up kind of being corrupt himself. But I mean that's that same experience of like filming with a hidden camera. You're so aware of it. You're like, oh my gosh. Like I know they can see the camera.
Yeah.
Everyone knows I'm filming, but then after, yeah. So that was the experience with Project Veritas.
Cool. So is this an ongoing thing? Are you guys still collaborating, or you guys have projects in the work?
Obviously, I'm still in touch with them because I did have an agreement with them as far as I was contributing for the production of the video. Yeah. And that way also, I mean, they're the ones that publish the video. So Facebook, and they have a great like legal team. So Facebook can't be like, oh, Ryan, you produced this video. Like, no, Project Veritas produced the video. Obviously, I still violated my NDA. They could still come after me, but I kind of have that umbrella that protects me.
That's awesome. Sure. And if nothing else, now you become, now you're in the light as like an advocate of free speech, man. And I can't tell you how important that is right now. And I have so much respect for that. And it's gotten you teamed up with, the other Zachs who are, have come forward through Project Veritas as well. Yep. Can you tell us about, I really want to talk about a little bit about like the antitrust hearings that have been going on. Okay. But also this open letter that you guys wrote. It's pretty powerful stuff. Like how did that come to be, and where do you see this going?
Yeah. So it's funny because we actually came up with the idea for the open letter like that Monday. So like last week was a huge week because that Monday, when was that? The 27th of July. Yeah. Matt Gaetz made the announcement that he was launching a criminal investigation, or he was sending a criminal referral over to the DOJ for Mark Zuckerberg for possible perjury. So that happened. So that was huge on Monday. And I'd actually previously communicated directly with Matt Gaetz like a month prior, even before the video came out. So I'd given him some material that was not in the public release, and so I believe that some of that was used for the criminal referral. Because if you don't want to go about go around doing criminal referrals if you don't have something to back it up. So anyways, that was last Monday, the 27th. And then I was talking to Zach. I think I gave one of the Zachs a call, Zach Voorhies or Zach McElroy, and I'm like, hey, how can we maximize like the coverage this week? I know there's the hearing this Wednesday with the antitrust. And Zach Voorhies was like, hey, well, let's just write a joint letter to Congress. And so we did. And I remember we were taking notes that all day Wednesday during the hearing, we were taking notes on like Google Docs, and it was like 4 or 5 hours. And so we wrote a joint letter. We made some edits and published it. And it went huge in Brazil. So some journalists in Brazil took a hold of that, and they took hold of my section that talked about how like censorship's a global pandemic, and it mentioned I referenced Brazil. So dude, imagine this. Okay, imagine the Supreme Court. Imagine Justice Roberts being like, "Hey, we don't like what Trump is saying and his supporters. We think that's fake news. We're going to issue a court order to censor Joshua Fauerstein," which Facebook actually, funny enough, deleted his page last week. Hey, we're basically, essentially what the Supreme Court did is they issued court orders to censor the biggest conservative voices. And not only in Brazil did they want them to be banned, they wanted them to be banned globally. So I think they were successful in that. Yeah. So can you imagine? Like, that's what happened in Brazil last week. That's why I've had, like, with my interviews, I've had over 500,000 views in Brazil this last week.
That's
Wow.
amazing. Yeah.
That's intense.
State sponsored like censorship, that's where it gets really sticky.
Yeah,
I was reading the article
for
about
sure.
it. The President Bolsonaro, people closest to him are literally, their Supreme Court is telling them that they cannot have social media access, which is just insane. And they've tried to like circumvent that, but even still, and Facebook's playing ball with them apparently, So that's just a dangerous precedent to set, absolutely.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, and we can go over a little over the 30-minute mark if you'd like. If you like, I don't want to feel like we're like too rushed. So
Totally. Yeah, we're just plugging along, dude.
Well, I'll just kind of go off script here a little bit.
Yeah.
I think we're all worried about the upcoming election and what's going to happen there. I think, with the state of the world and everything happening, I think they're like, people are all talking about the meddling and whatnot, but I think that Facebook and Google and they hold a lot of responsibility on being fair and letting both sides have an equal voice. And I think, what you bring to the table here is that's just not happening. How do you see that playing out? And I mean, with the election coming up.
Yeah, no, I was asked that question a couple times today. Like I said, I had an interview in Guatemala today and also in Puerto Rico, one in Miami too. Some of these Spanish media channels. But yeah, like it's the election's like 90 days away, and I saw what Facebook is doing with the elections in 2018. They wanted us to monitor the 2018 midterms. Like, to put it in perspective, like before 2017, like there were hardly any U.S. based content moderators. So after 2016, Facebook's like, hey, like, they even would tell us as employees, like, oh yeah, like Facebook brought all these jobs to the U.S. because there was a lot of Russian interference in 2016, and Facebook wants to ensure there's fair and democratic elections. Right? That's a joke. So they've already proven that Russia did not interfere. Like, right? That's
for sure. We all
beat
are
that dead horse.
Yeah.
So like the only other reason would be, okay, like they knew they effed up in 2016 because Trump won somehow using social media in a very good way. So yeah, they spent $200 million. Our contract for 3 years was $200 million. Facebook paid Cognizant $200 million. So, I mean, this is how much of a priority it is. And so in the training decks they gave us, like for 2018, they're like, okay, look for, election fraud. And if there's anything that's trending, let us know, raise it up to Facebook. And they needed urgent visibility into the Democratic debates, that's... as far as what's going to happen in the fall, like it's going to be tough. We know that there's probably things Facebook's doing behind the scenes that even I at my level didn't see. Because imagine, like, I was entry level content moderator, and I saw a lot of things. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine at the higher levels, like with the engineers and whatnot, there's probably a lot happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It all trickles down.
I mean, I think one of the things. And I don't know if you have as much experience in this, but just kind of the feedback loop they give you, that kind of drives people and keeps them in their own confirmation bias, and and it seems like it's just been so left leaning for so long now that it's just in a subtle way that's kind of guiding people anyways. But that's just kind of a side note there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But
we did a whole episode a couple of weeks ago about like echo chambers, right? The fact that you kind of, like, not only do you seek out the type of information you want as an individual, I mean, like we kind of all do, but then also Facebook kind of tends to recognize that and they feed it to you. They feed what they think you want, and then also I've noticed like things that they think you will make you angry, right? Like usually like the top of my feed will be something like that. I'll just like start getting pissed off right away. I'm like, oh my god, I see what you're doing here.
Yeah.
So, do you use Facebook at all?
It's funny because I actually do have Facebook, and it's funny. It's really ironic because I shared a link on my Twitter to to like a Facebook page, like Real Ryan Hartwig, and it felt so weird doing it. I'm like, that's kind of weird. Like, I'm exposing censorship at Facebook by using Facebook.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Like we're using, like, this will go up on YouTube, and like we're using YouTube to talk shit on YouTube. You know what I mean? And So
It's quite satisfying.
it is quite satisfying. There's definitely a bit of satisfaction, right?
Yeah.
But of course, they're probably sitting in a smoke-filled room somewhere, just laughing at us, right? You know what I mean? Like they're just like, so
boosting your views. Oh, something that I want to point out, guys, is like when my video came out a month ago. Basically, so within the first 5 hours, the video with Project Veritas had 146,000 views. All right. After that 6 hour point, the viewer count froze at 146,000 for the next like 10 hours.
yeah.
And here we are a month after, and I've done 30 interviews in the last month, and like, guess how many views it has now on YouTube? 246,000. So you're telling me that in a month it only garnered another 100,000? Like, that's a joke.
Yep,
Yeah,
I agree,
totally,
and we see it on our end too. You know, like we're saying unpopular opinions, and knowing what you know about the inner workings of how that works, right? The whole COVID thing has become a very polarized left-right type of thing.
For sure.
Yeah.
So we try to upload things related to just questioning the narrative, really, is what it is. Like our video we uploaded yesterday, a little bonus episode, had a clip of Stella Manuel and the America's Frontline Doctors, that whole thing, and the whole video was taken down immediately within 5 minutes because we showed a clip from that actual speech. And so what we did is we took it all. Well, I took the video, edited out just that piece, re-uploaded it, and it was fine. Right, and we directed people to our podcast version where they can listen to the full unedited one, the uncensored version. But knowing what you know about the inner workings at Facebook, so how do you think that they're censoring the message related to COVID? Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I've been asked that a lot in the last week, and I've been trying to think about different policies. And I need to talk to Zach McElroy again. Maybe he might have some more insights. So there's some different policies that are very vague. So, for example, when they were deleting the Ukraine whistleblower, I won't say his name here for purposes of your YouTube channel. Yep. But we know who we're talking about.
Yep.
His first name is Eric.
Eric. Yep.
So when Facebook was taking down that, like they put it under a generic part of the policy, like coordinating harm other, like just super generic. There's nothing in that rationale of the policy. So for something about health, there's actually a policy that prevents, if there's like those prank challenges, like eating a Tide Pod or whatever, the Tide Pod challenge.
Yeah.
We actually have that written into our policy.
Wow.
So to prevent those, because they can cause harm in the real world and they go viral. So under the policy that's called regulated goods, like we deal with firearms, all kinds of things like that. 3D printing of firearms doesn't allow, you can't share those designs. But also in that same policy, you have something that regulates it's funny, I'm thinking in Spanish now, like translating into English. You regulate, you can't sell pharmaceuticals.
Pharmaceuticals,
sure. Like person to person, or illicit drugs, but you can't share. You can't sell your meds online, obviously. So within that, we also regulate kind of those spam messages where you go online. It's like the clickbait where it's like, "Hey, lose 20 pounds in 3 days." So those are examples of things we regulate. So as far as the policy is called regulated goods. So we would regulate, if there's some weight loss pill that someone's trying to market, like a clickbait where it says lose 30 pounds in 2 days, we would kind of limit that to a certain extent or outright delete it. So there's nothing that I remember specifically addressing coronavirus. Now, with that being said, Facebook can change their policies anytime they want, essentially, or every 2 weeks is usually when they would do it. So they may have come out with something new since January that would, prevent people from talking about certain things. So yeah, it's really fascinating to see the influence that Facebook has, because we're talking about it's healthcare. It's a healthcare related discussion, and these are certified doctors. So what's the problem? Like what's going on? Yeah.
Doesn't meet the narrative, doesn't meet the agenda.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
what it's all about. So let's see. So going back to the antitrust hearings, like, one of the things that really stood out, like it just seems like you know, a lot of it was just, you know, oh, I'll get back to you. I'll have my office get back to you on that.
Yeah.
Just plain dumb, right? And then just blatant lying, like Zuckerberg straight up just lying, just saying like,
Yeah.
oh no, we're all about free speech and not censoring politics. It's like just blatant. You know, so I see it as a dog and pony show, the whole thing.
Yep.
Like, what was your impression
It's
overall
theater.
from what you saw on it?
Yeah, I mean, it was more. I watched pretty much the whole thing, and no, I agree with you. A lot of it was, yeah. Let me get back to you. I'll have my office reach out to you.
Yep.
So I'm trying to find this post. It's really funny about a speech that Mark Zuckerberg gave. But yeah, in the platitudes, it's just Mark Zuckerberg said, okay. So Matt Gaetz asked Zuckerberg, he's like, hey, you know, there's this video that came out with Project Veritas. You know, Ryan Hartwig and Zachary McElroy were featured in it. What do you have to say about that? And he's like, well, I'm aware of the video, and we will do more training, and we are an open platform. You know, I don't know if he even blinked. Was he blinking normally that time? I don't remember. People have theories about his blinking, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
it's easy, man.
Yeah.
So probably the last thing here I was really curious about. I know a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago at this point, like Trump had a big, you know, he was coming out talking about the Section 230 and the whole difference between, you know, how these platforms, or, you know, how these social media outlets, whether the debate is whether they're platforms and deserve the type of, you know, tax whatever incentives that, you know, a platform would receive versus being a publisher where they're actually curating the content, you know. And it seems to be clear where they fall. Like where does their argument fall apart for you? Like how does it like I see them as a publisher, you know what I mean? Yeah.
I see them as a publisher as well. Let me pull up I did some research on this on Section 230. So one way to look at it is, and while I pull this up, one way to look at it is basically, okay, so if you have a library, are you responsible for the content of the books in your library? Like that's one question. You know, like I don't think you are. So now in 1996, obviously, you know, Facebook received or is using that protection from 1996. Are they a publisher or platform? And there's some research done. There's an article, and I can send this to you. There's someone named Rebecca Tushnet, Tushnet, and she wrote an article in 2008 discussing this, talking about power without responsibility, intermediaries, and the First Amendment. So it's really, really good. It talks about basically how Facebook's an intermediary, and one of her solutions was there needs to be a policy-based call for action backed by a theory that the legislature can legitimately determine that free speech will be served by particular restraints on intermediaries like Facebook's ability and incentives to interpose themselves between speakers and audiences. So right now there's no incentive for them to allow more speech. The law, the way it's written, describes it as good Samaritan blocking and screening of offensive material. So any action voluntarily taken in good faith to restrict access to or availability of a material that the provider or user considers to be obscene, lewd, lascivious, filthy, excessively violent, harassing, or otherwise objectionable can be taken down. So, but in good faith. So that's what I think Matt Gaetz honed in on is that hey, Facebook's not doing this in good faith anymore.
Perfect. Yeah, and that's a whole debate, man. And I hope something changes as far as that goes. I guess. You guys have anything?
Well, I would just sum up somewhat that is, I think, you know, in one sense, we're looking at this that like they're censoring one side. And what I truly believe that people don't look at is if they're censoring there, it's all going to come down to everyone at some point. There's at some point, something you don't want to be censored is going to be censored.
Yep.
And that's why we just stand up against censorship as a whole.
100%.
And obviously, you know, we have our views and I feel like our views are being censored, but this is coming for everyone.
Yep.
No, thank you for that, Ed. I really appreciate that because that's something I've tried to reiterate. And even in my interviews in Brazil and in other places, I point that out. Like, hey, like we want an open and free internet. Like this could be just as bad in 5 years on the other side. So, I mean, you know, we see that karma again and again. like when Obama changed the rule to disallow a supermajority for federal judges. So now we see that Trump's taking advantage of that. So he's appointing all these federal judges very easily. So like if you change a rule, you're like, aha, this favors me now. Well, it's going to come back and bite you. Karma's tough like that.
Certainly.
Absolutely.
Certainly.
I guess the last thing real quick. Have you ever heard of LifeLog, the DARPA project?
So I need to research this more actually. Because people have asked me about this, and let me take some.
It's kind of interesting. It's interesting. So here, this is just right off the Wikipedia page, but it says the objective of the LifeLog concept was to be able to trace the threads of an individual's life in terms of events, states, and relationships, and it has the ability to take in all of a subject's experiences from phone numbers dialed and email messages viewed to every breath taken, step made, and place gone. Okay, so that sounds like a kind of a good little description of what this technocratic like bubble we find ourselves in. So this was shut down in February of 2004 for civil liberty concerns. I mean, obviously, and guess lo and behold, Facebook launched on February 4th, 2004. So so kind of shifted it over. So anyway, I don't know. I just want to see if you had any thoughts or opinions on that, like without getting too on here.
As far as that goes, as far as the LifeLog DARPA project, I'm gonna do some more research on it. It definitely makes sense. I mean, if you want to monitor your society, I mean, I know that in the U.S. we wouldn't be able to deal like the way we are culturally. We couldn't deal with like the way things are in China. We're under this illusion maybe that we have all these freedoms, and we do have a lot of freedoms. Don't get me wrong, but at what expense? And they can monitor everything here. So it's definitely a possibility. I mean, it's definitely a possibility.
For sure, dude. Yeah. Right on, man. Listen, man, I'm just going to put a call to action out to our viewers. I know you have a GoFundMe page. I want everybody to go support Ryan over there. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that and how else we can find you, social media and all that?
Yeah. The GoFundMe is at gofundme.com/Facebook Insider. And then if you go to my blog as well, ryanhartwig.org, it's pretty well organized. You can find all the links there as well. Thank you. Thank you guys for all the support. Like I said, this is my full-time job. My Twitter is a real Ryan Hartwig. Perfect. Yeah, real Ryan Hartwig. And then so pretty much all my handles are the same on Gab, on Parler, real Ryan Hartwig. And what was I going to say about I had a job. So the project ended in February with Facebook. So I had a full-time job from March until last month. And I quit that job just to kind of make room for everything that's going on. So I'm pretty much doing interviews full time, like you said in the beginning, like a free speech advocate.
Yep.
I might be looking to start a nonprofit, but any little bit helps, and I greatly appreciate it. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, we stand with you, man. Yeah, you guys are some allies here at Truthzilla for sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on, Ryan.
Thanks
we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Megan, Ed, and Scott. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Have a wonderful evening.
Right. Bye-bye.
All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and play the Project Veritas clip with Ryan Hartwig, so we will see you on the other side.
Facebook favors the left.
They do, 100%.
We work with a lot of liberals.
Yeah.
I would go in there with a MAGA shirt or a MAGA hat, I'd get my ass beat.
So I saw some discrepancies. I saw some evidence of bias.
You're saying because he's a white male. Oh, it's easier when they're
white men. Okay. No one has the white man's back anymore.
we bring the game to it could work on the left side.
I saw more blatant posts against Trump.
But Facebook obviously hates Trump. Yes, 100%. They do.
I saw an alarming number of posts that really focused on conservatives, kind of a double standard.
So I've spent quite a bit of time looking at pictures of hate organizations, Hitler, Nazis, MAGA, Proud Boys, all that stuff all day long.
Our latest Facebook insider, Zachary McElroy, exposed the pervasive anti-conservative bias inside Facebook. Today, another Facebook insider, Ryan Hartwig from Phoenix, Arizona, comes forward and he says the anti-conservative bias is pervasive. Tell us your name and where you worked.
So my name is Ryan Hartwig, and I work as of a couple weeks ago, I worked as a subcontractor for Facebook for Cognizant in Phoenix, Arizona. So I was a content moderator for Facebook, essentially.
And why did you decide to come to Project Veritas?
I thought people deserved to know what was going on. So seeing just such blatant bias from Facebook just really bothered me.
Other than your personal experiences, you felt there was an institutional bias that you say was aggressive in Facebook. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, so when I started in March of 2018, I saw more blatant posts against Trump. So I saw an alarming number of posts that really focused on conservatives, kind of a double standard. There's like 6 people who decide the policy for all of Facebook, and they all think the same. They're very like-minded. So, I mean, if you live in San Francisco, you're not going to find a sample population that's diverse in their political viewpoints.
We rigged the game to it could work on the left side.
Yes.
But the left,
How? Yeah, how?
freedom of speech is the main one.
So like they're allowing political ads still.
Yes.
So now they can give more exposure to the left versus the right.
100%. Yes.
But Facebook obviously hates Trump.
Yes, 100%. They do.
And then, but yeah, we've been getting a lot of content about it. I had like at least 10 jobs today.
Bunch of shit rednecks threatening civil war if they remove our
I know, for real.
Trump supporters are crazy ass assholes that every other other come take it.
Yeah, it's true.
And it's like, listen, I'm the government which is the next person.
Yeah.
But you're not going to catch me rioting over the it's like impeachment, like it's a problem. Like it doesn't just happen. Trump called it a coup.
Yeah.
And it's like that should scare you more than anything. Yeah.
Hartwig was not surprised when content moderators at Facebook that he worked with grouped average Joe Trump supporters with terrorists. The next clip was captured by a hidden camera. This is of Steve Grimmett, team lead for content review.
I mean, I guess maybe that's part of your job description is looking for red flags, but you know, right?
Sometimes they're redder than others.
One of my projects before now was hate. So I spent quite a bit of time looking at pictures of hate organizations, Hitler, Nazis, MAGA, Proud Boys, all that stuff all day long.
Does it surprise you that he combines Hitler, Nazis, and MAGA? He's describing hate organizations he's moderating for Facebook. He kind of throws MAGA in there. What is your reaction to that?
So yeah, he groups together hate organizations, Hitler, Nazis, MAGA. So that's kind of how the moderators are conditioned to think. Like, hey, anything that's right-wing, hey, it could possibly be on a hate list. So there's no left-leaning individuals on that list. So the policy is called dangerous individuals and organizations. So in that same list, there's also terrorists.
Or the moderators that were doing this moderation. You mentioned Broward was a Sanders supporter. Mm-hmm. How about the people that were making the choices on whether to take something down or not? What were their politics like?
So I remember one individual named Cassie who sat kind of behind me to one side, and we had a few conversations about politics. And in one occasion, this is during the Iran, a couple of weeks ago, a bounty was placed on Trump's head from Iran. So they offered $80 million to anyone who would kill President Trump. And Cassie was talking about how she would accept that bounty and that it would be, it would be worth it.
She's a content moderator?
Yes.
It's inhumane. It's inhumane, but if it's going to save the country, why not do it? I feel like $80 million would do a lot of good for the U.S. instead right now. I'm just saying. We should just hand them over. Take the money as a country. That's what I'm saying. If we hand him over, our country would be safe. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean it's a bargain, right?
You're talking about them coming, like them coming here. I'm just saying, take him. Y'all can keep your 80 million, or you can give it to us and we can put it in our debt. Like, just stay in the U.S. Like, come on. Yeah, that's it. They just want one person. Why not take one for the team?
Hartwig said there was also an alarming anti-white bias that was being applied to Facebook's content moderating policy. Okay, so we were talking about this LGBTQ slide. Talk to me about what we're looking at here.
It's every summer there's Pride Month. So this first came to my attention in the summer of 2018. So I'd been there for about 4 months. And so Sean Browder came around and he was giving us a policy update.
Who is Sean Browder?
So Sean Browder is the policy and training manager for Cognizant. So he essentially oversees, makes decisions for policy for over 1,000 employees, Cognizant employees. So he has some autonomy. Yeah, he came and gave a policy rollout about, hey, this is going to be Pride Month, and he was speaking to a group of mainly Hispanics, because I was on the Spanish team for the first year and a half. But this basically says straight out, hey, we're making the exceptions for our policy to favor the LGBT community. So basically, it's okay to call straight white males filth if in the context of for not supporting the LGBT. So that's the specific context. So it's a carve out. It's a specific exception for the policy, and it allows attacks on one single group of people, straight white males, for not supporting LGBT rights.
Hate speech is allowed if it's, quote, intended to raise awareness for Pride LGBTQ. So hate speech is allowed in some cases, but apparently not others?
Correct. Yeah.
We've heard this kind of anti-white bias in big tech before. Last year, one of our undercover journalists spoke with Leslie Brown, a former HR contractor for Google, who now works as an HR executive for Facebook in San Francisco. She laughed about the anti-white male bias that exists inside big tech.
All stories. But I mean, they were able to fire him without having to worry about discrimination.
Due diligence, right.
No,
yes, because it's a white man.
Yeah,
white man, so no problem. He can't do it that easily if there are other issues.
Oh, it's easier when they're
white men.
Okay.
Yeah, no protected class.
No one has the white man's back anymore.
You're saying because he's a white male, there's more
that if
leverage.
he chose to sue the company, that most attorneys would just laugh.
When you started, you felt like something was off. Do you feel you were being targeted for your politics?
Yeah.
Hartwig said that Facebook's anti-conservative, anti-white bias made him a target. Did you know that other employees called you racist from day one?
No. And when I transferred to the North American side, I didn't hear anything about that. I didn't know that people were talking about me behind my back. I'd never really caught wind of it. And so, like, I understand, like, people probably knew I was conservative or Republican. That's very possible.
You weren't completely alone. There were other conservatives who worked with you who also felt out of place. And tell us about some of those people.
So a few of the people I sit with, Jose Moreno and Tyrell Lease, they're both very conservative and they're both military veterans. But they noticed that the content that they were moderating targeted conservatives.
Right.
And there was bias and kind of a groupthink effect happening where you had a lot of liberal people or like-minded people who were actioning a certain way. And yeah, then you also had people who were following the rules.
That's what you said. Facebook favors the left.
They do, 100%.
Let me ask you this. Do you guys feel like Ryan got targeted because he's conservative? He did. He got targeted because he's conservative? He did. Is everybody you work with mostly like you got? Or everybody's
No, we work with a lot of liberals. Yeah. 3/4.
So most of the people moderating,
If I would go in there with a MAGA shirt or a MAGA hat, I'd get my ass beat.
Hartwig says the anti-conservative bias in his case went beyond name-calling. He was called in for corrective action by his HR department for what he says was a benign action. So then you post an LA Times article to an internal message board. Tell us about that.
This was around early January. We were having conversations. About Islam and different religions. And so I shared a link to this article. So this was back in 2015. And in January of that year, there was an attack in France, and the Charlie Hebdo cartoonists were murdered. And so there's an attempted attack in April, and the two individuals were from and attended a mosque in Phoenix. So this was, I learned about the event. It was labeled as a freedom of speech rally.
What did the Facebook HR people tell you?
They told me, hey, you violated the acceptable use policy. You violated our rules. So you use it for personal use. But in the document they gave me, which they never retracted, they said that I was advocating violence.
The AUP policy states that you cannot send or use Cognizant or client internal systems to send discriminatory, racial.
Was the LA Times one? The Los Angeles Times where it showed had an image of me during a protest in 2015?
Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, especially those type of articles, whether or not you mention in them or whatever the case is, it can be offensive to other people.
Yeah.
So it's a violation of our AUP. You cannot use our systems to promote certain things like that. You still violated the AUP policy
because I shared a link.
By sharing an article that was discriminatory in nature.
So you said that you went back the second time. You said they backpedaled on something. What was that?
Yeah, so they in the initial corrective action, CA, they said that I violated the AUP and that I was advocating violence, and that the thing that I shared was discriminatory in nature. And I met with them, and they said, oh, it's not the fact that it was discriminatory. It wasn't any of that. No. It was the fact that you just used a client device for personal use. So they really just read it, it wasn't anything you shared. It was just the fact that you shared it for personal use.
I see. So they backpedaled, they changed their tune.
Yeah.
So again, you have every right to exercise your First Amendment. We're not taking that away from you. We just ask that you don't do it inside the building on our systems.
So I kind of understand what you're talking about. So I guess, and that I just kind of typed it out just because I wanted to have all the facts in one place. But the fact that it was an LA Times article, or the fact that it was involving an anti-Islam protest or a freedom of speech rally, that you're saying that's kind of beside.
It's not even. It doesn't even matter. If you sent
taken into consideration.
If you sent.
Gotcha.
I'm trying to think of something else. Invite for a children's event that's happening downtown, it would be still reviewed for AUP because you sent something non-work related using our systems.
Gotcha.
So that's again the bottom line issue is that you used our systems to do non-work related stuff.
You felt you were targeted because you were conservative, but you also felt you were being passed over for jobs and discriminated against for being a white male. Tell us about that.
I think it's quite possible that, so I applied for the policy team twice. There was no question about my fluency in Spanish, and that was part of the job requirement. But as far as being a straight white male or being a white male in the workplace, yeah, I mean, the policy we saw about straight white males are filth kind of breeds that culture. Hey, we allow attacks on straight white males. Hey, Ryan's a straight white male. I feel like I was perhaps limited in my advancement.
And I think we have some tape of people saying that you were targeted because you're a white male.
He applied for 2 jobs that he should have got.
But he didn't get them? Ryan applied for 2 jobs. He did not get them because he's white and conservative? Or just...
Hartwig wasn't the only person targeted by the conservative bias at Facebook.
I stopped being friends with Ryan and Raymond because we were all on the same team.
Yeah.
But they bonded over their support for Trump, and they would always bring it up, and they would get mad because I would go at it with them.
So Facebook's like favoring the left with the policy.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And people get banned and blocked.
Most people just don't have the, speaking Spanish, cojones.
Yeah, cojones.
Cojones.
Yeah.
To do this. I'm assuming you had a confidentiality agreement with Facebook's Cognizant, and you basically pretty much strapped a camera to yourself and recorded your training.
Mm-hmm.
And in that training, it does say confidential elections 2020.
Yeah.
Are you worried, or are you?
It was very stressful at the time. So the first couple months of recording, my wife didn't know about it. So when I raised it up, it became a stress point for our marriage. Yeah. So I'd signed the confidentiality agreement with Cognizant, but at that point, I was seeing them interfering on a global level in elections, and then I saw a blatant exception that just targeted conservatives or favored liberals, and we're deleting on average at 300 posts or actioning 300 posts a day. And so if you magnify that by however many content moderators there are on a global scale, that's a lot of stuff that's getting taken down. So that was the tipping point. There was that one last, one final post that just kind of put me over the edge. But then knowing what I knew about how they were giving exceptions for the policy, I knew that it was likely that was happening elsewhere on a global scale.
These brave insiders who felt compelled to come to us with this story worked for a Facebook contractor. At the end of February, Facebook ended the contract with their employer, but the bias that they exposed has not been addressed by Facebook. Stay tuned.
Wow, that was great to have Ryan on. He's a truth warrior for sure.
Absolutely.
Like seriously stepped up. Like
I wonder if he understands how impactful he is and what he's done and the people that are following him and listening to what he has to say. It's just it's astounding and it's good. He's in the right place at the right time and he's being used for good.
Yeah,
So,
certainly.
yeah.
And I think with the upcoming elections and whatnot, this is what we need to be talking about.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be looking at this because I think we all can agree that there's going to be some meddling of some kind going forward, and we need to stand up before it's too late. Reality is it's probably a little late anyways.
Well,
but,
I think too, we're all wondering how to stand up.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally,
That's
totally.
a big thing. And I think there's been a couple people lately that, and when we were doing Union of the Unwanted the other night, was it Mel that was saying, she was just well, what do we do?
Yeah.
How do we do it? We all want to stand up, but, and maybe that's what we need to really delve into. Right?
Yeah,
What's
certainly.
the way
certainly.
to go here?
At least we're understanding our enemy a little bit
Yeah,
more.
yeah.
That's kind of a piece of it. I think standing up is that's what we're here doing. That's what we're doing.
Yep.
Is we're just trying to grow the truth around us, essentially.
Totally.
Yeah.
I completely agree. And Ryan's a perfect example. Somebody who's laying it all on the line. He's putting it all out there, man. He's quit his job and he's just speaking truth full time. And for whatever that looks like, that's why I think it's so important that you guys go out. If you can kick him $1, $5, that's so important,
Sure,
man, because he's putting
sure.
it all on the line. Walked away from it all. I'm so jealous. Actually, he just disconnected from the Matrix and now he's speaking out
certainly.
against it, man. That's so inspiring. And we're still beholden to this Matrix, right? But, ultimately that would be the goal with this little thing. We haven't done anything to monetize this thing yet. You know what I mean? It's I actually, if you guys are interested, I made a little Teespring t-shirt page, but I haven't linked it to anything yet. That's as far as I got, and a couple designs. But maybe this week here we'll make a GoFundMe page for us or Patreon. I don't know. I'm just thinking but that's not the motive. That's not what we're necessarily here to do, right? It would be nice to be able to just be dropping truth bombs full time. But I think besides that, I just I have a lot of respect for anybody that's just willing to completely walk away from whatever they had going on before to speak the truth, man. And it's so inspiring.
Well, the reality is it always comes back to these same simple principles to me. We are the many, they are the few. If we don't do what they tell us, they have no control. But we can't do it alone. And he's a perfect example of someone who did it, but he needs us to stand with them. we have to stand with him on this one.
Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, everybody, we just want to say thank you for joining us. Thank you again so much to Ryan Hartwig for sitting with us tonight and sharing his information, a true warrior for freedom of speech. I am Megan, sitting here with Scott and Ed, and we wish you all intellectual prosperity. Good night.
Good night.
Bam.